special short section on Professor R.P. Bambah today. He was supposed to attend the webinar, but due to some personal reasons, he could not attend. But we have with us Professor Hans-Gill and Professor Khanduja with us. So I would like to ask them to speak something about Professor Bambah, but before that, let me very quickly mention some things about Professor Bambah. So he, of course, needs no introduction, but I'll try to give a very brief summary of his life and works. I mean, even though this task is impossible in such a short time, but I'll still try. Professor Bambah was born on 30 September 1925 in Jammu. So he's going to celebrate his 95th birthday very soon. And we would like to wish him on that very special occasion from all of us at Ganitsara. He did his schooling in Wazirabad and Sialkot, now in Pakistan, after which he joined Government College Lahore, where he did his degrees up to masters. It should be mentioned that during his masters, he scored 600 out of 600 marks, which has remained unbeaten. That means nobody could ever do it again. So he was 1 year senior to the Nobel laureate Professor Abdul Salam, with whom he maintained a lifelong friendship. So after his master's, Professor Bambah, he started his research work under Professor Sarvadaman Chawla, who is another very well-known number theorist from India. And he, after doing some research with Professor Chawla, he left Lahore in February of 1947 and joined the University of Delhi. But he left Delhi in 1948 to go to the University of Cambridge, where he worked with Professor Louis Mordell for his PhD, which was awarded in 1950. Then Professor Bambah had several positions. So he started out as a reader in Punjab University in 1952, but then he left to join the Institute for Advanced Studies in the US for 2 years. He eventually became a professor at Punjab University in 1958, but left for a short period to join as a professor in the Ohio State University in USA. He came back to India, and later on he became the Vice Chancellor of Punjab University in 1985. So he has been decorated with numerous awards. So some of them are that he was awarded the DSc degree by the University of Cambridge. He is a fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences, and the World Academy of Sciences. And very significantly, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan Award in 1988 by the Government of India. Professor Bambah, he not only worked in number theory, geometry of numbers, and discrete geometry, but he also established a tremendous school at Punjab University, which worked and settled some of the outstanding problems under his guidance and collaboration. And probably Professor Hans-Gill and Professor Khanduja would say something about this. So as I mentioned already, he's turning 95 very soon. And on behalf of Ganitsara, I wish him good health in the years to come so that he can keep guiding us. And now let me ask Professor Hans-Gill to say a few words. So she's also a very well-known number theorist from India. And if Professor Hans-Gill could unmute and say a few words. So I can see Professor Hans-Gill is in the call.
It's muted.
Yes, so let me try to unmute her. I think there is some issue with Professor Hans-Gill. If Professor Khanduja would like to take over. Professor Khanduja, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, ma'am.
Would you like to take over? Professor Hans-Gill seems to have some problem with the audio.
Okay, let me first of all congratulate, compliment and congratulate Kanika Sinha for a very good lecture.
Thank you.
And you also for going on with this series so successfully, choosing very good speakers. Actually, my association with Professor Bambah goes back to 1971 when I joined MSc in the Department of Mathematics, Punjab University, Chandigarh. And but I will, and over these years we have been in close contact as student, as a MSc student, then as a PhD student, then as a teacher in the department. He was head, I was a teacher in the department. And then finally, this is a very long connection. And I will just talk about my last meeting with him. That was on 24th August last month, 1 month back. I had written he taught me algebraic number theory while I was in the first year of PhD. He was supposed to teach it to MSc students, but MSc class was small and I was doing PhD at the time and I had not studied algebraic number theory. So I took up his course as pre-PhD course. Of course, all the books will tell he was a devoted teacher, he was a good researcher, all the awards you mentioned. But one thing I remember, he was a national professor at that in that year. He never missed a class. If he had to go to Delhi for some meeting, he will always take an extra class. So we had complete 6 hours a week with him. And I liked his subject so much, the subject he taught, that I took up this as a topic of my research, but with somebody else, not with Professor Bambah, because he was traveling here and there. He was going out of India. So I joined it with Professor Luther, but learned it from him. And now in the COVID days, when I and my husband were away from each other, he was in US, I was in Chandigarh. So I wrote I wrote a textbook in algebraic number theory. Whatever he taught us, I also taught it many times to the students. Same thing, but of course, I had some additional knowledge, additional this thing from my guide, Professor Luther. So I wrote a book and I completed it. And before submitting it to Springer, I wanted to give a copy of it to Professor Bambah. So on 24th August, I went to his house to give him a copy of the book. And then he told me that his first student, Gurnam Kaur, from Punjab University, first PhD student, wrote her PhD thesis in 1964, and she worked on the problem of minimum discriminant of algebraic number field of totally real fields of degree 6. And I was shocked when he told me that the smallest cubic field of signature 1,1. Signature 1,1 means that one real isomorphism and one pair of complex isomorphisms. So means it's not totally real 3-degree field. The minimum discriminant absolute value of the minimum is 23, and it is attained by such a field q theta, where theta satisfies this polynomial. I was shocked. He has stopped teaching for the last 20 years. Last 40 years, he's not teaching. He's not guiding formally a PhD student for the last 40 years. And still, and then he said, for totally real cubic fields, the minimum discriminant is 49. And he immediately blurted out, oof, I was shocked. And then he said for 6-degree fields, he's said two things, and I was ashamed that I taught it only a few years back and I have forgotten. Of course, these are now mentioned in my book. For a few days I will remember, but not for 40 years to come. So he is just extraordinary. He has an extraordinary interest in mathematics, extraordinary interest in life, extraordinary warmth in his heart. Whenever I visit him, he always asks about my family members, my sons, my daughter-in-laws, my grandsons. Where are they these days? What are they doing these days? And of course, he also asks about my husband if if he doesn't accompany me. So with these words, I will, because I have a lot to say. I know him so much as a student. He has changed my life completely. One more incident I would like to quote. when I got married in the year December 1979, uh, uh, and uh, immediately after 1 year I had a kid, and there was no research. Only I was doing teaching work, not writing any research paper, not guiding any student. And Professor Bambah was the vice chancellor at the at time, as you mentioned that he became the vice chancellor in 19 the end of 19 in September 1984. He became the vice chancellor of Punjab University, and a vice chancellor of Punjab University is always a member of the governing body of PGI, Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, where my husband was an assistant professor at that time. So he told me, Sudesh, one day he took us to tea, all the research students and junior staff. He took us to a canteen tea where we used to sit on the ground with our cross-legged. He used to sit us with us on the ground cross-legged. So he told me, see, your husband has written 4 papers in 1 year, and during the last 5 years or 4 years, you have not written a single paper. Mm, mm, I said yes. I said yes. I have not written, but I don't know how many husband has written. He says yes. I looked at the report of PGI, annual report of PGI, and there were 5 papers by Dr. Khanduja. So from that day onwards, I said I must spend time on research. I must adjust my time between my family and research. And from that day onwards, there was no looking back. It was he who awakened me from his sleep. There are many other instances when he was vice chancellor at Punjab University, and the whole of University Grants Commission was finding a financial crunch, and he sent a notice to every faculty member that we should arrange our own funds, we should apply for a project. And at that time I did not know, I was just a lecturer, I didn't know how to write a project, how to write problems. So I wrote a project just with my hands. At that time there were no computers, typing was just handwritten typing. So I just wrote it, a project, CSIR project. I remember I took it to his house because I could not go to the vice chancellor's office. He was very busy, and I took it to his house. He didn't have time to read, so he passed it on to another person called Professor Shankar. They suggested me some modifications, and I submitted the project. And after that, I was always having a project. When one project was about to finish, I used to submit another. So that way, he changed the lives of others. He changed the lives of students. He played a very positive role. With these words, I think I should end my speech, because it's a Sunday afternoon, and everybody has family duties. So I will end my speech with this.
Thank you so much, Professor Khanduja. I forgot to mention, so Professor Khanduja is also a INSA senior scientist at IISER Mohali. And I have shared an article that she and Professor Hans-Gill has written about Professor Bambah in the chat box. You can take a look at it if you are interested to know more about Professor Bambah. Now I'd like to ask Professor Hans-Gill. I see that she is available in the call now. If she would like to say a few words. Sorry, Professor Hans-Gill, you were on mute. Could you click the unmute button? Professor Hans-Gill, unfortunately, we could not have her live on the meeting because of the audio issue, but she has sent me a message via WhatsApp, and I'll just play it now.
This is the message that I want to be read at this.
So is this audible?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear it.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers for organizing this wonderful talk. And I would like to congratulate Dr. Sinha for this very, very nice, very clearly done and explained talk. And I am very glad that I could attend it. I'm grateful to Professor Ajit Iqbal Singh for informing me about this. And actually, it is Professor Bambah who made it possible for us to meet, because he invited Ajit from Delhi to Chandigarh to visit our department or stay as long as she wanted in our department. And she stayed for a couple of years. And since then, we have had very valuable interaction. And I have a very good fortune of being Professor Bambah's PhD student. We were a group of 5 students at that time. And out of those, 4 did PhD with Professor Bambah and 1 with Professor Hans-Gill. Gurnam Kaur, that Dr. Sudesh mentioned, she did her PhD on the topic she explained, but other 3 of us did in geometry of numbers. He built a school in Chandigarh. His students, 2 of us, myself, Vishwa Chandra Dumir, had joined, and then later now he has some grand student, Dr. Madhuraka is there, Dr. Grover is there, and he had Dr. Taram Singh. So with these people around, we could work with all of us together, worked in some very hard problems in geometry of numbers, particularly the non-homogeneous minima of quadratic forms. There was a conjecture of Watson, which we together made efforts, and we could prove it along with the known results, and also obtained the corresponding results on the positive minima. And more recently, we have, with the particular efforts of Dr. Madhuraka and her student Litika, proved some results about a very famous conjecture on the non-homogeneous or product of linear forms. So it is all due to the advice and encouragement of Professor Bambah. Even although he's retired, he is not actively doing mathematics, but he is always ready to discuss mathematics and discuss the problems whenever we meet. We'll talk about mathematical problems, some problems, old problems or new problems. And as Sudesh had said, that he has such a remarkable memory. And he's like a walking encyclopedia in the problems that he is interested in. For example, I talked to him about this lecture on the circle method. And then also there is a recent conjecture of Keller that we talked recently, just yesterday. And then he could recall all the results that were proved, like when he was active on these. He told me he had lectured in our department in about, I think it was to be 1963, on circle method. And he remembered all the history and he remembered the method. He explained to me, within a few minutes, all the ideas behind it, the major arcs, then the minor arcs, etc. And then about Keller's conjecture, he explained to me the history. It's really remarkable. And it's so energizing to talk to him. Though sometimes he feels that actively he's not doing something much in the last few years, but still his mind is very active. And he has such an understanding of the background, of the motivation. He can exactly explain to you the reasons why things are done the way they have been done by mathematicians in the problems that he is interested in. And he has very wide interests. So he has done much about mathematics and about the university. He's still a member of the Senate, and he attends various other meetings or functions still, even though health is not great, but he has got good health. And I would like to take this opportunity to wish him good health in the coming years, and hope that we can continue our mathematical interactions for years to come. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk about this. Thank you.
That was the message I received from Professor Hans-Gill. So on that note, I would like to bring the session to an end. And wish Professor Bambah good health, and also thank Professor Khanduja and Professor Hans-Gill for saying some nice things about Professor Bambah. And also thank you to Kaninika ma'am for giving such a nice talk and for answering so many questions. And yeah, so with that, I would like to end the live stream and also stop the recording. So thank you so much.